Look around. You can find cars like these on AutoTrader, like that car riding your tail. Or if you're tailgating right now, all those cars doubling as kitchens and living rooms are on AutoTrader too. Are you working out and listening to this ad at the same time? Well, multitasking pro, cars like the ones in the gym parking lot are for sale on AutoTrader. New cars, used cars, electric cars, maybe even flying cars. Okay, no flying cars, but as soon as they get invented, they'll be on AutoTrader. Just you wait. AutoTrader.
Acura's all-new ADX, a compact SUV that isn't just built for one thing. It's precision-crafted for everything. To escape the grind with available all-wheel drive. To go with your flow with available Google built-in.
Hey Google, turn it up.
Okay, turning up the volume. And crafted to be heard with an available Bang & Olufsen premium sound system. The all-new Acura ADX, crafted to match your energy. Acura, precision-crafted performance.
Take your vibes and go, 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 go.
Google is a trademark of Google LLC.
Welcome back to Rams Up, your favorite LA Rams podcast. We are part of the Fans First Sports Network, and you can follow us on YouTube at youtube.com/@RamsUpPodcast. I'm your host, Mark. I'll be joined often by my football guru, Ian, along with a bunch of other friends of the show on occasion. Let's get to it. Hey, what's going on, Ram fans? Mark from Rams Up here. Another update here for you. Getting closer to the NFL draft. Man, one of my favorite times of year. Right up there with Thanksgiving. Way ahead of Christmas, New Year's, Easter, Halloween. Yeah, the NFL draft is right up there. And we're going to have fun this episode. Talk a lot about players, prospects, mock draft results, all of that good stuff. Later this week, we will have Ian back. We'll do some mock drafts with him, take a look at some position groups. Scott Richmond as well will be joining us to do the same. And before we get started, I'm calling this my 18 Observations episode. By the way, we'll go through about 18 different items we're going to talk about. And the first thing we want to talk about, it is episode 703 on the podcast. So we're going to talk about a player who wore number 3, Frank Corral, out of Mexico originally, born in, am I going to pronounce this one right? Let's just say Chihuahua, okay? I'm not sure how you pronounce this city name. It sounds like Delicious, Chihuahua, Mexico. Made his way to Riverside, California, UCLA, and then with the Los Angeles Rams. Played for the Rams from 1978 to 1981. He was a punter those last 2 years, the NFL's leading scorer in 1978, made the Pro Bowl that year as well. And he is 13th on the Rams' all-time scoring list leaderboard, right between, it's kind of funny if you think about it, sandwiched between Steven Jackson, SJ39, and Cooper Kupp. So there is Frank Corral sandwiched between those two great Rams, one of the better kickers in Rams history. Now, Troy Reeder's back. Troy Reeder returns, and this kind of surprised me. I thought when the Rams signed Nate Landman to go along with Omar Spates, I thought that was the end of Troy Reeder. They wouldn't bring him back. But I just think the Rams like that stability, that a player who is reliable, not flashy by any means, but a good backup that can come in if someone goes down. I'm not sure what the terms are. Hopefully they're favorable to the Rams. You know, we kind of, poo-poo Troy Reeder's abilities, but you got to give it to him, man. He fights hard, plays hard, and doesn't make a lot of mistakes, just not great in coverage, and certainly not a sideline-to-sideline linebacker, which I think the Rams still miss in this on this defensive roster. So it'll be interesting to see. I still think the Rams are going to add a linebacker in the draft, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. And speaking of linebackers, I had the Draft Dynasty podcast folks on with Ian and I the other day. Hopefully you caught that. And we did talk about linebackers that might help out the Rams. And shout out to Jeremy Betts and Andrew Wilbur. It's the second time we've had them on. We had them on back in July of last year to talk fantasy football. This time they were back to talk about the NFL draft from a Rams perspective, and they know their stuff. Check out that episode. I thought it was really good. And one of the guys they talked about was Jack Kaiser out of Notre Dame, and he was also a recommendation for the Rams. Mason Cameron of Pro Football Focus gave suggested Kaiser as well. But Kaiser is more the same, really. Not a sideline to sideline guy, just an excellent tackler. 6'2", 231, turns 25 years old this season. But talk about run defense, and as the draft dynasty guys pointed out, that was probably the biggest hole in the Rams, offense or defensive wise, the biggest issue by far. And Kaiser would definitely help them out from that perspective. Just doesn't miss tackles, highly graded, kind of a high floor, low ceiling guy. You know what you're going to get. He's not going to be making any Pro Bowls, but it would be a solid addition. Now, with Landman and Reader on board, I don't know if it makes sense, but Jack Kaiser is the guy they talked about and a guy we might want to keep our eye on, as some other linebackers we'll talk about here in a second. And speaking of that, Chris Sims was talking about the Rams defense, and everybody's kind of on the same page as far as the Rams defense goes. And he quoting here, he said, "I think this is the most pressing need: linebacker, someone in the middle of the field, that guy that runs around blitzing, running sideline to sideline." And I would have to agree with Chris Sims on this front. Still think that's what the Rams are missing in this defense. Landman and Reader, good additions, I suppose. But, man, I still would like them to add, someone like Campbell in the draft, Jalen Walker. Probably not going to happen if the Rams stay at 26. But there are some other guys, and as I said, we'll talk about them in a second. And I'm going to go through a list of players the Rams have met with. Now, I compiled this list from various sites. I'm probably missing guys, and I might even have some guys that I'm maybe completely wrong on. But this is the list I came up with. I think it's pretty accurate. Tyler Shugg, the quarterback out of Louisville. Jalen Milroe, that's a guy that Ian has really grown fond of. Quinn Ewers, not feeling it for him. Now, Cam Skattebo, the thing about him is I don't think he really adds much to this offense. Great player. If you're thinking about long term, if Kyron Williams moves on, is Skattebo a guy that's going to take over the lead running back role, compete with Blake Corum perhaps? But if you're looking for a change of pace guy, a bigger running back, he doesn't check either of those boxes, but he does play like an angry linebacker. So I don't know. I love the player. I just don't think he adds much to the Rams as far as a 2025 Super Bowl push. Jarquez Hunter, talked about him a little bit already. Just a hard-working, high-character guy. Kelvin Banks, I have him listed as an offensive tackle here. A lot of teams see him as an interior offensive lineman. Jackson Slater, Torricelli Simpkins, two interior offensive linemen that you might be able to get a little bit later, as is Jared Wilson, a center. Isaiah Bond, a lot of people talking about him in the Rams. He's a speed demon. He's the guy that said he was going to break the 40 record at the Combine, came up a little bit short. And then there's Matthew Golden, the guy that on the big stage in big moments comes up makes big plays over and over again. He's a guy I really like. And then some more Tez Johnson, a wide receiver out of Oregon. The problem with him is he's like a really small guy. Did not perform well at the Combine, even in the speed department, not what you'd expect anyways. And I'm just not feeling it with these undersized wide receivers anymore. Trey Harris, feel completely different about him. He would be a solid second-round pick. Danny Stutzman, a linebacker out of Oklahoma, I think he would be an upgrade potentially over all of our guys. But again, he's not really a sideline to sideline, super athletic linebacker. Carson Bruner out of Washington, another linebacker. Shamar Stewart, edge rusher out of Texas A&M. He's going to go early. I don't think the Rams go edge early. And then some cornerbacks, defensive backs, Isaiah Alexander out of LSU, Dorian Strong out of Virginia Tech, Justin Barron out of Syracuse. I've seen him pegged as a linebacker as well. And then Jonas Sanker out of Virginia and Malachi Starks out of Georgia. Starks could be the first safety off the board. And I know some Rams fans love him, just don't see the Rams go in that direction that early in the draft, just not feeling it. And by the way, on Tyler Shugg, who was it that had this quote? It was Diana Rossini on X saying that one NFL coach arguing that he will be the best quarterback in this class. And, 6'5", 219 pounds, pocket passer, kind of fits that Stafford mold as far as his, his skill set, big arm, turns 26 in September. His college career was extended by 3 injury-laden years at Texas Tech. He is going to be a really good quarterback. Where would you take him? Maybe the 3rd round if the Rams are interested. But now the thing is about Shugg, he's not a cheat code guy, and I think Les Snead alluded to the fact that that's what he wants. He's leaning towards a quarterback that may be out of the mold of the, Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford mold, a guy that can create, off schedule, create with his legs a little bit. And Shugg is not that guy, but could very well end up being a good quarterback. Man, this guy has been around so long at college. He was in the same recruiting class out of high school as Trevor Lawrence, and he was a backup to Justin Herbert at Oregon one year. So he's been, plodding along in college for quite some time. So certainly has some experience. And, an older quarterback, your initial thought would be, we don't want a guy that's already 26. But the quarterback position, maybe it's not such a bad idea to have a quarterback at that, that's much more mature. I don't really have a problem with that. Let's see, a guy that the Rams apparently met with that was not on that list, Thomas Fidone, and this is a guy that the Draft Dynasty guys talked about as well, a tight end out of Nebraska. And I kind of like what I saw on film, watched some highlights of him, 6'5", 243. And, maybe it's just me, but I'm watching Fidone and I see a lot of Tyler Higbee in this guy. And Fidone could go undrafted, and the Rams, if they're meeting with him, maybe it's just a get in his ear like, hey, we want you in camp if you don't get drafted. But the one thing I noticed about him is, man, when he's got the ball in his hands, always leaning forward, always picking up those extra yards. And yeah, I kind of like him. Liked what I saw. Not necessarily a polished blocker, which could be a mark against him as far as what the Rams expect their tight ends to do. But this is a really deep tight end class, and that's why Fidone could go undrafted. Other years, he could be your 5th or 6th round pick, in my opinion. So another guy to keep an eye on. I like him. Draft Dynasty guys like him, and apparently the Rams like him a little bit as well.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Upgrade your business with Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning fewer carts going abandoned and more sales going cha-ching. So if you're into growing your business, get a commerce platform that's ready to sell wherever your customers are. Visit Shopify.com to upgrade your selling today.
And talking about tight ends, this deep class, and here's a look at these guys. The top 10, Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren, Harold Fannin Jr. Man, he would be electric in this Rams offense. Mason Taylor and Elijah Arroyo, 2 guys Ram fans seem to be really happy with or excited about. Terrence Ferguson out of Oregon, no slouch. Gunnar Helm out of Texas, CJ Diopri out of Alabama, and on. Just a really good list here. And then there's Thomas Fidoni at the number 12th ranked tight end in this group, and could get drafted. That's how deep this class is. Pretty impressive class in the tight end group. Hey, Rob Rang's mock draft on Fox Sports. You know, I have to say, I don't go to Fox Sports that much. I'm really disappointed in their NFL content, considering they're, they are all over the NFL during the season, right? One of the, premier telecasters of Rams games. Just not seeing very good content on their site, but I did go back and check them out. And Rob Rang's mock draft, Travis Hunter went 4th to the Patriots. He dropped a little bit. Tyler Warren went 5th. Just pointing out some highlights here. Janty 6th to the Raiders. Matthew Golden to the Cowboys, pairing him up with CeeDee Lamb. Colston Loveland went 14th to the Colts. A lot of people expecting that. Jahdae Barron, the somewhat diminutive cornerback, but I tell you, man, whoever lands him is going to be really happy. And in this case, he goes to the Bucks. Jackson Dart, 21st to the Steelers. And the reason I kind of question that pick is, they picked Kenny Pickett early a couple years ago, and that backfired. They reached for a quarterback. I don't know if they're going to reach again. And then Emeka Egbuka went to the Packers. Seen that a couple times. The Ohio State wide receiver going to the Packers. And who did he have the Rams picking? Josh Simmons, the Ohio State offensive tackle. And the thing about Simmons is 6'5", 317 pounds. And, if he had not suffered that injury last year, he would be going probably top 10. So maybe a little bit of a risk, but a high reward. Now, the thing to consider here is, Scott Richmond shared with me, Les Snead, how much do you believe what these guys say prior to a draft? But he did say they want to draft a player from a big-time program, a team that belongs to a big-time conference is the way I would put it, and someone with experience that can come in and start right away and help this team. And as good as Simmons could be, he is not that unless he's going to beat out Rob Havenstein, right, or Lyric Jackson. So that's why I would question this pick as well. I would be okay with the pick, though, because you're getting a top 10 offensive tackle once he's 100%. You would hope anyways. And he is, by the way, out of San Diego, Helix High School, same high school as Reggie Bush. Spent 2 years at San Diego State before moving on to Ohio State. So he would, he would be a solid pick, but doesn't fit. If the narrative is someone that's going to help this team right away get to the Super Bowl in 2025, Simmons would not be the guy, right? Now, Tampa Bay GM pointing out something that we all kind of accepted already, Jason Licht, quoting here, you might be able to get the same level of player in the second round as you can in the fourth round, and that's why it might be difficult for the Rams to trade back. It would be smart for them to trade back, but maybe difficult, going to take two to tango. And what would a trade back look like? And I fished around using the draft value card, came up with some potential scenarios. So the Rams number 26 pick is worth 700 points. Okay, got it. New Orleans, if they were to pass on a quarterback in the first round, and word on the street actually is that Derek Carr has shoulder issues and may not be good to go in 2025. Well, if they wanted to move up to number 26, they would have to give up the 40th, 93rd, and 112th pick. That's worth 698 points. Now, I think the teams will maybe make unfair looking trades if they're the ones that have the incentive to make the trade. In this case, I just tried to find ones that were pretty even. If then if New Orleans is initiating the trade conversation saying, hey, we want to move up, they may actually have to give up more than that. If it's the Rams that want to move back, they may have to throw in a 6th-rounder, for example. So New Orleans, the 40th, 93rd, and 112th, that equals 698 points on the draft value chart. The New York Giants, similar situation. If they were to pass on a quarterback, perhaps, and want to move up to 26, they would have to give up the 34th, 99th, and 154th pick. That's 694 points. Jacksonville, now they don't need a quarterback, right? But Liam Cohen, the new head coach there, good friends with Sean McVay. Maybe they work out something. Maybe there's a player that Jags want to move up for. They would have to give up the 36th and 88th pick, and the Rams would come out short on that by 10 points. That's worth 690. And then the Browns, a team that that's probably going to pick a quarterback in the first round, but if they didn't, they could give up the 33rd and 94th pick. That's worth 704 points, and they could move up and draft a quarterback or a player they really loved. So that's the scenarios I'm seeing. And again, the team that is initiating the call, the team that is more desperate to make the trade, maybe going to have to surrender a little bit more. So speaking of that, the Fans First Sports Network had a mock draft. That's a network that the Rams Up podcast belongs to. And so I was making the Rams' first round pick, number 26 overall. And on the board, listing some of the players I considered, offensive tackle Kelvin Banks was the highest rated player, but again, he might be more of a guard guy, and is he going to help this team right away? Offensive tackle Josh Simmons, we already talked about him. Defensive tackle Walter Nolan, I really like this guy. I think he reminds me a lot of Kobe Turner, but he'd be a rotational guy. It'd certainly help. For a Super Bowl push, though, we do need some depth there. Rams like to rotate a lot of guys through there, so he would be a valid pick. Safety Malachi Starks, and I just don't think the Rams are going to go safety that early. Wide receiver Matthew Golden, is he going to help for a Super Bowl push? I absolutely think he would. Probably be bad news for his old teammate Jordan Whittington. They both played at Texas, right? And then edge rusher James Pierce Jr. Man, I love the player, but be honest with you, none of these guys would be starters, but who would help this year? And my selection was Golden. I took Golden out of Texas, and I did try to trade down, and it's kind of humorous. Reached out to New Orleans and New York, the podcasters representing those teams, and I'm offering, I'm asking for them to give up 3rd and 4th and 5th round picks and so on, and they didn't want to do it. You think in this scenario, why not? We're only picking 2 rounds, but I think these guys, and I'd probably be in the same boat, just want to make your pick and not interested, and also maybe afraid that they're going to maybe look like they made a bad trade perhaps, but the trades were fair, absolutely fair, but I couldn't find a taker, so I drafted Matthew Golden, the big-time playmaker out of Texas. Hey, I thought it would be a good time to review the Rams depth chart, and heading into the draft, how does it look? How is this roster looking? Well, this is what I have. Not a lot of changes here. I still have Lake out there as a starter. We're going to run, if we're going to run our best 11 out there, Quentin Lake's going to be out. He's going to be out there every snap regardless. And I have Spates as the starting linebacker. No big holes there except for a maybe upgrade at the cornerback position, some depth along the defensive line, a sideline to sideline dynamic linebacker. I got the key backups listed there too. For those of you on the podcast, up front, Turner, Ford, and Fisk. The edge rushers, Jared Verse and Byron Young. Spates at linebacker. Quentin Lake is out there. I have 3 cornerbacks listed: Durant, Witherspoon, and Williams, and the 2 safeties, Kinchins and Curl. Key backups: Laurel Murchison, Nate Landman, Tyler Davis, Jalen McCullough, Darion Kendrick, Emmanuel Forbes, Nick Hampton, Brennan Jackson, Deshaun Johnson. I guess we could add Troy Reader perhaps. And then on the offensive side, Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua, and Tutu Atwell, the starters on the outside. And then up front, Alaric Jackson, Steve Avila, Coleman Shelton replacing Bo Limmer. Last time I presented this, I had Limmer as a starter, and that does not seem to be the case going into camp. Kevin Dotson, Rob Havenstein, Tyler Higbee, and then Matthew Stafford and Kyron Williams. Key backups, I have Jimmy G, Blake Corum, Jordan Whittington, Warren McClendon, Colby Parkinson, Bo Limmer, and Justin Dedich. And Dylan McMahon I should probably have on here as well. Pretty good shape at interior offensive lineman, if you ask me. And then if we look at where we may be going in this draft, I think we could very possibly draft a quarterback. We will definitely draft a running back, wide receiver, and tight end. Offensive line, we're going to draft an offensive lineman. I'd lean towards offensive tackle. I think the Rams may try to peg someone that's got some swing ability, play guard and tackle. So we'll see how that goes. I'd be surprised if they went heavy up front, just one offensive lineman, in my opinion. And then on the defensive side, we added Poona Ford and inside linebackers, right? Reader and Landman. So who are we going to draft? And I have a question mark next to safety in the free agent department because I still think they could bring back John Johnson. And then drafting, they will draft a defensive lineman. I think they're still going to draft an inside linebacker and definitely a cornerback, possibly an edge rusher and a safety. It really depends on how many picks they end up with, right? So that's how I'm feeling about this. I'd almost guarantee you they're going to draft a running back, a cornerback, a wide receiver. Those would be the 3 positions for sure. And I'm thinking inside linebacker and defensive lineman as well. Now, I'm going to close this with one of our favorite guys, Puka Nacua. Did you hear the latest on him? You know, he said originally, I could play in the NBA. He's rolled that back a little bit. Now his plan is retire at 30, go to Europe, buy a team, coach the team, and make sure he plugs himself in there with some playing time. So there you have it. I got Puka Nacua as the point guard of some random European team. This guy, man, gotta love it. Gotta love it. And at his height, got to be a point guard, I'm thinking. And it ain't happening in the NBA, Puka. And we're glad you've come to grips with that. Wow, Puka Nacua, gotta love the guy. So that's all I got. Hope you enjoyed that. We'll have Scott Richmond back at some point to talk about cornerbacks in this NFL draft. Ian's going to come back and talk about some position groups, at least a couple more mock drafts between now and the actual draft. We're going to try a couple of different strategies draft-wise. Going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait. Rams will be on the clock before you know it. Out here from Rams Up. That's going to do it for this episode. Remember, you can reach us at ramsuppodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget about our YouTube channel. Till next time, keep the horns up, stay safe, and have fun out there.